Good morning, folks. I'm jumping on here today with a bit of a vulnerable share here, and to embolden myself in this, I decided to put on this fabulous jacket. Y'all, can you even stand it with this jacket? Can you even? My friend Jennifer gave it to me a little bit ago, and I feel like Dumbledore in this thing. I'm serious, and I had to like pair it with this fabulous necklace I haven't worn in forever because honestly, who's gone anywhere to put fabulous jewelry on anytime lately? I've just been wearing all the things lately. I'm like, screw it, let me be cute just for me in this quarantine life, right? And it actually does help to enliven and embolden me to come on here and share this story with you. So I was at the dentist the other day. Hadn't been to the dentist for a while, certainly not since before this whole pandemic began. Had a few other things on my mind over this past year, so it kind of slipped by the wayside, and it was time. So I'm in the dentist chair, and the moment came to start the exam, and the dental assistant said, "Okay, you can take your mask off, so we can work on you." And I took the mask off, and in that moment, face to face with this dental assistant, I realized like she's the first stranger who has seen my whole face up close and in person in almost a year. And that really hit me hard in that moment, like the poignancy of that, of not having my actual face and my smile and the fullness of it seen up close and personal by, outside of a handful of people for such a long time. I cried at the dentist. Yeah, that happened. Um, Luckily, she was distracted by her work. I'm not sure that she noticed, but again, the poignancy of it really stayed with me and really, almost invited me forcefully to really take a look at where I'm at now, almost at the 1 year mark of this quarantine. Coming up in a couple of weeks will be, at least in my region, will be 1 year into this time of consciously, intentionally shifting so much about our lives in response to this collective experience of pandemic. And I've really been taking stock about what that means for me, and I've been noticing what that means for other people and asking some questions about that. And like in that inventory for myself, there's a few things that I had to really acknowledge because most of my focus has been on like our collective experience, right? Like what's happening for us as a community, what's happening, for the planet, what's happening politically. And it's really been time to look more carefully at what's been happening for me. And so in this, pandemic time, aside from kind of the things that we've all experienced together, or many of us have together, my relationship of 7 years ended in this time. I experienced, I shut down my business for quite some time. I made a video about the impact that had on my sense of purpose. And my experience with loneliness, especially in the last, half of this time, because I actually really appreciated the time alone in the beginning for quite some time. But the loneliness has been extremely present, especially since that relationship ended. And that all really kind of came to a head for me this past month because I actually did test positive for COVID about 5 weeks ago and, went through a period of, full quarantine, myself and my daughter, and I'm fine. I never had any symptoms at all. But the, extra shutting down and that fear and the feeling, absolutely terrible feeling of having to tell the 4 people who I had been in contact with during that time that they needed to get tested because I was positive, that was the most terrible feeling I've had in a long time. And, I made the decision that until myself and those who have been in my quarantine pod are vaccinated, I'm not gonna risk being in, face-to-face contact with people as even more so than before. I'm not gonna say 100%, but even more so than before. And that coincided with Valentine's Day that I spent completely alone, and that it coincided with again the upcoming 1 year mark of this pandemic. And what I had to acknowledge was that after all of that, I was extremely depressed. And coping with it well, because I have a lot of tools, I have a lot of experience working with this particular experience of depression. I have a lot of support. My Reiki practice has been essential in, more or less being, in a pretty good place relative to all that. But for those 2-3 weeks that I was in that extra quarantine and just after, I had to just really acknowledge the depression and the sadness and all of the associated feelings of that. And and I know I know that a lot of us are in a similar place. So I've made some decisions about how I'm going to respond for myself. And I want to share those with you, and I want to invite you along. Because what I found to be true is that anytime I, share my healing or growth process with others, anytime I resist my kind of, my defensive, trauma response is often to isolate and to become closed off. When I resist that and I push back against that, not only is the process deeper, more effective, more transformative for myself, but there's often pieces of it that are valuable for others. So sharing all of that was vulnerable, and then sharing this invitation is vulnerable because it makes me accountable to you. It makes me accountable to myself to fulfill these commitments that I've decided on. And by sharing them with you in some form, that makes me accountable to you as well. So for the month of March, from March 1st through the spring equinox on the 21st, and then through the end of the month, I'm making several commitments of practice to myself, and I'm going to invite you all along. First, and this was already in the works, but I'm really turning this opportunity into, I'm folding this in to my personal practice. So first, I am holding a 21-day mantra chanting practice for anyone who would like to join, specifically for my Reiki students, but this is open to anyone. We'll be working with the Medicine Buddha mantra. And just for 30 minutes a day at noon Pacific time between March 1st and the spring equinox on the 21st, we'll be gathering on Zoom and chanting this mantra, working with a particular visualization, and letting it do some magic inside of us. I'll put information about that below if that's something that you would like to join. So I'm intentionally leveraging that pre-existing experience and commitment into what I'm doing for myself. Secondly, I'm going to be doing a food-based detox. I try to do this particular detox twice per season, but more realistically in the last few years, it's been maybe twice a year. And so I'm gonna do that. It's a very elimination based, back to basic nutrients for the body that I have found to be really supportive for my system. And not only for my physical health, because that has certainly suffered in this time of, more stillness and sadness. My physical health has definitely had impacts and suffered from that. But also the impact on the emotional side and the mental side of depression and struggle and stress is measurable. So I'll be embarking on that for the month of March. And then thirdly, I'm going to be very actively leaning into the practice of emotional freedom technique, or tapping. It's a practice that I've used for a long time personally, that I've used with students and clients for a long time. It's powerful for shifting our brain chemistry around stress and around fight or flight response, around hormone levels related to those things, and has profound impacts on how we feel and what we think, and therefore how our body feels, and the, all of the impacts of carrying stress and trauma responses in the body gets addressed in some really powerful ways. So my commitment to myself and my invitation to you is, again, to chant daily with the Medicine Buddha mantra. This is deeply entwined with my Reiki practice. To shift my relationship with food in some particular ways for this month, in ways that I know already is supportive of my body. And to lean very, very deeply on a daily basis into the practice of emotional freedom technique to specifically target some of the things that I've been experiencing. That's a lot. That feels like a lot. But it also feels like what's necessary. And so the way I'm going to invite you into that is I am committing to making, in addition to all of that, I'm committing to creating a vlog about this experience. So my YouTube channel so far has been more kind of a teaching emphasis. And for this experience, I'm going to be really treating it as a vlog, as a way of logging this experience and sharing it with you, and holding myself accountable and asking for your support in holding me accountable for this process. I'm committing to posting at least 3 videos per week. If more get posted, awesome. But the commitment I'm making to myself and to you is 3. And they'll be touching on all the 3 things that I just mentioned, as well as just other things that come up that are related. Yeah, we'll see where that takes us. I could really use your support. I could really use your presence in the form of comments, of likes, of sharing the videos, of subscribing to the channel so I know you're there. Sharing what resonates with you or doesn't, similar experiences that you've had. I will be doing some teaching of these practices that I've mentioned in the course of this. So I'd love to hear how that impacts you. So that's my invitation and my request. I am excited. I am nervous. I'm grateful. And it feels like the perfect way to put a container around this 1-year mark. I will be doing something specific for the 1-year day anniversary of going into quarantine. Not sure what that will look like yet, but I will share it. To put a container of care and love and accountability around this experience, and to welcome spring, to welcome the season of new life, the season of emerging from the sleepy places, the cold places, the dark places. So that's the journey I'm starting. I invite you along. I am grateful for your presence, and may we be deeply provisioned for this as we travel together. Thanks a lot for listening. Over for now.